Anna, thank you, Annalena. Good day and welcome back, everyone who joined us for this first part of the series. And welcome to everyone who is just joining us for the second part of the four-part series of federal grant writing. We are going to be recording all of the calls. All of these trainings are going to be recorded. So as soon as we have the video uploaded, all those who registered for this four-part series will receive the recording and slides. And feel free to share those with folks in your network who would find this information valuable. So my name is Melanie Edwards, and I've been with the Wallace Center for 1 year as a program associate. I'm based in Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula on Coast Salish lands. Before we welcome our guest back, Dr. Barrett, we want to familiarize you with our work. The Wallace Center is a national nonprofit that brings together diverse people and ideas to co-create solutions that build healthy farms, equitable economies, and resilient food systems to support a future where all communities have the power to nourish themselves and regenerate ecosystems through a just food and agricultural system. Our work is delivered through the Food Systems Leadership Network, which is a national peer learning community that connects current and emerging leaders. Strengthens individual and collective leadership capacity and fosters collaboration across communities. And the goal of the network is to accelerate the realization of a just, equitable, and sustainable food system that generates good food and health and opportunity for all. Again, it is grant writing season, and I'm really excited to reintroduce our guest today, Dr. Barrett Vaughn, who serves as the Associate Professor of the College of Agriculture and Environment and Nutrition Scientists at Tuskegee University. On Monday, Dr. Barrett walked us through how to brainstorm and capture your vision for the federal grant application you're applying for. And you had some homework, so I hope you returned prepared for today. Yesterday, if you joined us, we had the USDA provide a great overview of the FMLFPP and RFS webinars. And we also had a few past reviewers and grantees who offered tips for creating compelling applications to meet evaluation criteria. So we have links for all of that. All of these sessions have been recorded. They're available on our website. And we're going to drop some of those links in the chat for you today. And again, if you have registered for this session, this is recorded and you will receive later today, as soon as we get the video uploaded, we will send everyone who registered a copy of the recording, as well as all of the slides and any materials that are shared today. So with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Barrett, who will continue walking us through federal grant writing. We're going to be working on selection and defining your idea today. So thank you.
All right, great. It's great to see all of you this afternoon. Thanks to all of you who have stuck in with this. I think we had a fairly robust session last week. And again, I'd like to thank the Wallace Center for graciously asking me to do these sessions. Grant writing is a topic that I really like to do and like to talk about and like to teach people about, and any opportunity that I have to do it, I try to take that opportunity. So I hope, a number of you are really kind of energized and we're able to do some of the homework that was set. And I'm hoping that that's been of a profit to you. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen since it's allowing me. Okay, great. And we're going to talk about federal grant writing proposal development. So I'm going to go through a quick about 7 to 10 minute review of what we talked about last time. For those of you who might have just joined us, I'll try to make it as brief as possible. And then I'll start to go through some of the things that were assigned. And that's where the interactive part's going to be. And relying on you to put some things in the chat. And then at a little bit ways down there, after we get there, we'll have lots of time for question and answer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We already have done brainstorming and capturing a vision. We're doing today selection and dividing an idea. Next week, we'll be doing structuring objectives and identifying measurable outcomes and developing tasks. So essentially what we're trying to do is make sure that you're ready and have everything that you need to do ready for the May the 2nd deadline. So at least you'll have a good 2 weeks to work on it and ask questions or anything else. And the Wallace Center folk, the good folk there, will be telling you about some other opportunities that are out there. But bit of housekeeping again, just some things. Basically, the thing is, please, if you are able to have your video on, it helps me to be able to see if you're understanding what's going on. And, you know, if you have a question, you can put it into the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that. That gives us a record and we can go back and be sure that we address the questions. And please forgive me if we did not get to your question that you may have posed last session. I think we did our best to kind of go through there. But if you did have a question, please do not have a problem with reposing it today. I printed off the chat from last time. It was 11 pages. I tried to scan everything to try to find any questions that I might have missed. I might have missed a question in those 11 pages. So please feel comfortable putting that back up in the chat. But just to go back through this is some general information about the AMS, LFPP, and the RFSP. A lot of content was given at the session yesterday with Wallace Center. The recording to that, I believe, is available. We did have a robust discussion about cash match. I guess the one thing that I would say, because obviously if you were here, you found out that I actually did the match wrong. It depends on the terminology. If they say the federal funds requested and a match, that means it's on top of what you're asking them. If they say that your match is a percentage of the total project cost, which is what I was describing, which is what I just recently dealt with a proposal that was going to U.S. Department of Commerce, then it's a percentage of the total project cost. So the example that the Wallace Center, the people gave yesterday from USDA, they said, if you're asking for $500,000, we want $125,000 on top of that. And my question to them was, so the total project cost is $625,000. They say, yes, that's correct. So it really depends on the terminology. So, please be sure. And if you get something like that wrong, I don't think it's going to ding you too terribly hard. They're probably going to correct you at some point. But if you ever have a question, just be sure to call the contact people. Focus of this workshop, again, I want you to be prepared for the LFPP and the RSFP and every other funding opportunity to come out there. And a little bit about me. I'm an associate professor. This is the book I wrote about a decade ago, which was cathartic for me after serving on a lot of different panels. And I talked about the 10-75-15 rule. Basically, 10% are excellent. They're more than likely going to get the money. 15% is probably misplaced or doesn't have all the components. And then in the middle, which is not necessarily where you want to be, is probably 75% of proposals that are put in. And so we're trying to get you either higher in the 75% or into the 10% so that we can be sure that you get funded. And about the people from the survey, the 1/3 of the people, they're pretty new to grant writing, which is good. Some have written a few, probably about 3 out of every 10. And then there was a small percentage that have written in one also. Going through and reviewing, we talked about the vision and idea and the assignment. Your vision is what you want to see accomplished. So we talked a lot about what your role is and the things you want to do and what's on your heart. What were you created to do? Depending on how you want, what kind of language you want to use. But what the idea is, which is the proposal, is the written documentation of your vision. And that's what we're going to continue to be developing over these today and the next 2 sessions. And so we talked about the idea being very broad, encompassing a lot of different items that you want to see. But the thing is that, few funders are going to support everything. They're going to support certain things. And then the reviewers are really critiquing your idea, not your vision, and not you. And so your brainstorming assignment basically was to write short descriptions, which could be one word about what you want to see accomplished or which goals you want to meet. So that may be a whole page full of different things that you want to see. And then the task that we were given is to kind of review the AMS page, the seminar video that they have, for the program and review the RFP and write down the parts of the proposal that you need, just a list or outline, and then list all the potential supporters who could write letters. So that was the assignment from last time. I'm going to check the chat. So those are our people. Okay. We have one question, says, can you apply for more than one LFPP, like a turnkey marketing project and different project on the implementation grant track? Wallace Center, can you give some insight into that?
Yeah, you are able to apply for multiple, but if you get funded for multiple, then you will have to choose one to accept.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this was the assignment. So some of the question and answers that we had for the first session talked about different sources. So USDA, grants.gov, state departments, VAG, foundations, Google, etc. But the important thing really is to establish what it is that you want to do. Like it's nice for things to come across your desk, but the ability to say, hey, I'm trying to build a body of work. This is going to take me out of my sphere. It's good money. But most of the time when you have something cross your desk, you say, hey, I could apply for this. It'd be a great idea. You're really kind of taking yourself off your mission. And, you know, if you don't show the background that you've actually done work in that, you probably are working from a disadvantage in most cases. How to decide if federal grants are right for you, call the program leader, study previously funded projects, delve into the RFA and do some quick math. What's worth your time? Will it lead to more opportunities? Sometimes stuff takes as much time to manage and it could be for very little money. And how much is already written? Like how much verbiage do you already have written from like previous proposals or from reports that are out there that you can just kind of, click into place? And questions from more questions. What's most important is just my opinion, your budgets, your objectives, the impact. What does USDA look for? And, the whole thing I would say is that the USDA is really, really focused on how much money is getting back to the taxpayer, be it farmers, students, clients, agribusinesses, rural residents, whichever. And that's unique from USDA as a funding organization. And then some best practices: spend your time wisely, read the RFP carefully, start with a budget narrative and project summary first, ask for your letters early and look at previously funded projects. And then we'll be talking about expected measurable outcomes, but in brief, they should be expected, they should be measurable, and should be an outcome. So it's essentially, you may want to write as what it is that you're going to measure, something that you're going to measure. I'll give you an example. We were writing a proposal where we were doing a number of different training events, but we tied our outcomes to one because we knew that was going to be the one that everyone was going to choose to go to. And we, backed off of making our expected measurable outcomes the other ones because those were more supportive and optional. So you may need to be, or you should be, really kind of strategic with that. And so there are a number of questions to answer. So now we're going to go ahead and launch into what we're talking about today. I'm gonna check the box, see if we have any questions so far. So that was answered.
There's one question about if you are a subaward on someone else's project and where they are the primary and they're the partner, can they still get funded? This was a conversation that also came up yesterday about being on multiple grants.
I would tend to think that if you are primary on one and a sub on another, and I honestly, I don't know the answer. In my experience, when it's been programs where they said they only want you to be on one, they count the one as when you're primary. Like you can't be primary on two, but I think you can be and this program may be entirely different, but that's a question you want to ask the project leader, program manager, or program leader. How many letters do most applications have? Just kind of spin back around to that. There's no set number. What I think the biggest impact ends up being when you have letters from the intended beneficiaries. So if your intended beneficiaries is students, you don't necessarily need letters from students, but it might be teachers, it might be professors, it might be principals, it might be people like that who can, represent that group. If it's farmers, it could be farmers, or it could be the leaders of cooperatives, or a farming organization. So, you can have as many. I just looked at a proposal. I think it had no less than 30 letters. It was effective, maybe a little overkill, but it definitely demonstrated that they had been in contact with the intended beneficiaries or participants. So I just think, it would be good to do that. Okay, so moving right along, folks. All right, so the assignment that was for today was to do the brainstorming assignment, which basically was write a short description of what you want to see accomplished or which goal you want to see met. And so just getting a little bit of feedback through the chat. What did you learn from doing this assignment? Did it help? Did it kind of help you sort of understand what it is that you think you want to do, what you want to kind of contribute, what it is that you want people to give you money to sort of to do? And do you think it will help you in the future of grant writing? So if we get a couple responses in the chat from some brave folks. Okay, my goals were way too broad. Help me realize I need to zoom out, take a macro view. Okay. Wait, any others? Yes, I've already written a few and one. Good, but this has helped me to be more focused on key points and definitely helped me focus. That's good. And that's really the purpose. That really is the purpose of why you do this, is to focus. And I can give you a number, like things come across my desk, proverbial guest, basically emails, and I can look at them and basically say, this is not for me. It's very easy to just say, this is good, it's good money, it would be great, it would, be good for salaries and everything else, but it's not for me. And this process is really supposed to help you do that. So just to another one. Okay, our goals can be categorized and reshuffled deck based on. That's exactly it. That if I had money and I could give it to you, get your cash out, like I would give you money. Della McGuire, that's exactly what we're trying to get to. That's exactly where we're trying to get. So for the example I have here is a brainstorming assignment. Let's say that my vision encompasses all these different things, and one of those is produce safety on small farms, and that's one of the things that I do. Well, that's within what it is that I do. Okay, and there's a lot of things that I'm really interested in, like hydroponics and commercial supply for small farmers and agribusinesses and food entrepreneurship. Like there's a whole lot of things that are within kind of the scope of my vision. Not every opportunity that's going to come is going to fit, or I need to pick. And then there's some stuff that's out there that's great, but it's not me. Like small herd livestock, that's like outside of my vision, which is why it's kind of outside of the little box. So, I mean, it's good to understand. So if something came across my desk and someone said, well, Dr. Vaughn, would you be interested in doing that? That probably needs to be something that I say, pass, because I don't have the background. I'll be interested in learning about it, but it's not something that I really see me being as effective as possible in trying to compete, right? So the more that you really kind of know yourself and know what it is that you want to do, the more that you're actually able to build. Because the thing is, even if you're consistently trying to build in an area, there'll be all these different opportunities, one, to get money, but there'll also be these other opportunities to learn. Like I said, I had a interest in hydroponics. Well, they teach a short course from University of Florida. And so I invested, I invested the university's money to go down to Panhandle, Florida, and take this, I think it was like a 2 or 3 day course to learn about it, with a bunch of other people that are in extension, but it's not something I'm working on right now, but it's an interest. And so when I get to where, say, there's some opportunity, I can write and say, well, I've been through this course, I know this, I've made these, linkages and, made relationships and such. So you can kind of craft what it is that you want to do. And so going back. Okay. So in the chat, add one description of something that's inside your vision and one that's outside, like I did, like produce food safety on small farms. That is an area, but small herb livestock is not. So can we have a couple of you kind of give an example of what you would say is sort of inside of what it is that you want to do versus what is kind of outside of what you want to do, but still great stuff? I think I see the faces of some brave participants. Here we go. Farm viability through value-added products. So that's inside of your vision. So what would be outside? So getting more people to the winter farmers market is the goal. Getting more people to buy CSA is not. Right. So using that example, is getting people to buy from a CSA, is that a good thing? Is there a consensus? Like, how many people think that that's a good thing? You can raise your virtual hand or your real hand. Isn't that a good thing? People purchasing from a CSA? But is that Lisa Hall's goal? No. Is it somebody else, like somebody that's in this room right now, like that's their thing? They're like, yeah, CSAs are the greatest thing ever. You have the farmer, they're able to do direct-to-consumer sales. There are no middle people. They have higher profits. And that's great. Like, they understand it and they have a passion for it. But if there was a proposal or a request for proposal that came down and said, we're trying to boost CSAs or something like that, you'd like, well, that's nice and I could write it, but that's not really my thing. Because the thing that I'm trying to get across, and you're like, well, this is counterproductive because I want as much money as possible. What I'm trying to help you to do is to be sure that you're spending your finite resources and time and energy towards trying to apply for things that you are more likely to get because you have a passion for it, you have an interest in it, you have a background in it, or you have funded projects behind you or at your institution or your organization for it. And so what that does is it allows you to really focus down what it is that you apply for. Also, when you're looking at your vision, if it ends up being too broad, you may want to consider that, hey, there are some things that are personal, I think are good, but they're not necessarily something that I think is going to be fundable. It's something that's sort of an ancillary interest. Like, I'll be honest with you. I think organic is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I have no interest in doing any kind of organic research. I know, clutch pearls, but I don't have an interest in that. Like, I know people that do it. They're very good at it. They help farmers with it. Like, I like food safety certification. I can do that all day. Organic certification, just no, I'm not in, and they're very similar. Like, we work with a couple farmers that did both. I'm just not interested in organic. I think more farmers should use more safe, less chemically based, less hazardous methods. But I'm just not interested in that. And we have some real pros at Tuskegee University, like they're getting $1 million grants from like Cliff Bar and other organizations. Like, they're doing great. And I could tie into them and do some stuff, but I'm like, I don't have an interest in it. And, if you're organic certified, forgive me, I'm just not something I'm interested in. Inside, build a farm and capital campaign, outside animals. Like, I'm there with you. Food say, like, if you can divide the world of agriculture between produce and animals, like, I'm clearly on the produce side. I only eat animals, and maybe I'll give that up at some point in time in the future, but I eat them. I might ride them, but and pet them, but I like trying to do the rest of it. No, So, but yes, okay, all things farm to school, like that's understanding who you are. Like I'm interested in all of the logistics to help farmers who are over here producing food and getting it over to kids that need a food source that's local, that's fresh, that is at the correct volumes and shorter time between harvest to consumption, and uses less gas, uses less refrigerant, travels less miles. Like if that's your back, like that is cool. I mean, that's great. Value added inside, outside our purview for right now. So you say, well, value added is great. Like I've known some people that work on that. They're like, we help the farmer, they get their sorghum, or their cane, and they're turning it into syrup, or they're doing, this and that. But if it's outside, it's outside. But understand, like this can change over time, but and it will. But just understand that it's really important that you define what it is that you want to do. Outside farming practices. Yeah, you might be a completely post-harvest person. You may not be a production person at all. We have professors at our university, they are production people. And we have some that are post-harvest people. And they do a whole lot with what happens once you get it harvested. Inside our vision, expand the service area, which is online food market, and outside technical training of the farms we partner with. So you've been able to identify what your niche is. You say, look, okay, we're doing this, that other stuff we're outsourcing. And I think that there's not enough times when organizations are wise enough when they're writing a proposal to say, hey, let's make some calls, let's send some emails. Hey, would you like to be in on this? We got $250,000. Would you like 100? Just to do this part, because we don't want to do it. Like we want to stay with our core things that we do. Yeah, we could hire somebody to do it, or we could get somebody on our team who can kind of halfway get through it. But we would rather, slice off a bit of it to someone who's an expert. And let you do that. It could be evaluation, it could be, training, it could be that. And that's very wise. Inside, provide free technical assistance on soil health assessments, integrate IPM, site visits. Outside, provide a full farmer training program that provides training beginning to end to turn out fully trained farmers. That's perfect. So you're able to say, okay, we're going to stay in our lane. We know that to make our project complete, we need this component. So we're going to combine what we do, and either it'll be outside if what we have in terms of our objectives, which we'll talk about on Monday, is complete, then we'll just leave that on the outside. And we say, this is what we do. And especially when you're doing that, just as a tip, the more that you're able to clearly articulate what it is that you do and how it fits into the grander scheme, and really back up how thoroughly you do that piece, people are not going to have a question why you're not doing the other part. They're not, because you've clearly established what your role is. Now, would it be good to have a partner doing those other things, or to have letters of support from partners who say that they will do it, not from this funding part, but to say that, their regular funding that they're getting, they're going to do that particular part. Those are wise things to do. Outside institutional sales, right? You may be doing just direct to consumer. I get Cliff Bar every year. Oh, great. Wow. Okay. Because we just got it. Everybody go eat a Cliff Bar to thank them for our community gardens. Yes, that's a good recommendation. Inside, natural nutritional sources for honeybee livestock, and outside additive feed sources for honeybee livestock. Right. So, it's almost like when you talk about conventional and organic. Some people they're doing conventional. They're going to stick with conventional. They're not worried about organic. They're good. Like they do regular production ag, and they're going to stay there. They're not going to delve into those other things. It sounds like you're talking about mission creep. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And the bad part is that in most organizations, it's so easy to happen, either from external forces where, you need resources and you're really more concerned about we got to get this, we got to get that, we need salary, we got people to pay, we got people with mortgages, whatever the situation is, and something attractive like comes across your desk or across your emailing and say, hey, we should apply for this. Unless it's a sure thing, which sometimes it is, depending on how you're positioned with the funder. You may be talking about something that's taking you off of your actual primary, as you say, mission. And you have to kind of be careful of that, and it happens a lot. Like, being at an 1890 university, being at a land grant, we get people that come and tell us, and I was talking about this this morning with my colleague, we have people who come and tell us what it is that we should be doing all the time. They say, oh, well, you need to be doing this. And we're like, hey, like, this is what we do, and we do this very well, and we're set up to do this very well. So what I'm hoping that you're really learning from this discussion or this internal dialogue you're having, what are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that you have a background? What are the things that you're equipped to do, versus those things that are just not really there? And if you decide to build towards those things, you can do so in a very deliberate manner to say, okay, these are the things that we're going to move ourselves in that direction. And really kind of, I know money is an issue. It's an issue for us at the university. Sometimes it ends up just not being worth it, because now you've invested a whole bunch of time into something that you don't really do. And you may be coming up against somebody that says, we do this much stuff, and you're down here in terms of how much stuff you do. And then, the reviewer is going to look at it. Well, they've been doing this for like 10 years. They're just proposing that they do it, and they're, tying together some of the things that they do. So the thing is, the purpose of determining your vision, you may be asking, what? Are you trying to tell me that I can dodge reviewer negative comments? And that says, no, I forgot my shades. I'm trying to tell you that when you determine your vision, you won't have to. So some of you got the reference and some of you did not. And now I'm finally old. Okay. So for the most part, you're really looking at what it is that you're putting together as your idea, because your idea is the written subset of your vision. And you're saying, if you understand what it is that you want to do overall, and you understand what the funder wants to fund, and you put together a tight package of that, combining those two things, that you have the background, experience, interest, and passion to do, and that you're combining things that the funder also believes in, and you put together in a cohesive package, which is what we'll talk about all next week, you really won't have to worry. Like, you're making yourself more marketable towards it, because they'll see that. So we talked about this already. So it says your idea is a portion of your vision. Few funders support A through Z, most just fund a bit of it. And the reviewers are critiquing the idea, not the vision, and not you, just as a review. So let's say that you define the idea, BL&T. Yeah, it's after lunchtime, and that's why I chose these letters. They will relate to your objectives, and they're what you want to see as an outcome. Your objectives are those sets of tasks that will achieve BL&T, because who doesn't want to achieve BL&T, right? It could be beets if you're vegan, or broccolini if you're vegan, and lettuce and tomato. So, the whole thing ends up really being that when you're putting together your objectives, like I'll give you an example with a proposal that I'm working on now. The goal, I have a passion for graduate studies, probably because I was in graduate studies for so long, but I have a passion for graduate studies. And, I'm working on a proposal where we're trying to develop a relationship with another university in the state to build a sort of a path. I really don't like the term pipeline. I think it's overused, but really build pathways for students at our institution and at their institution towards getting a PhD, which we offer a PhD, they don't. but they offer a great master's program. We offer some master's programs. And really for undergraduate students, we'd like it if you, stayed with us and got a PhD or got your master's there and then came back, but really to foster that kind of environment. So I had to kind of look at the things that I felt were important, because the things that were important is making sure that the students, getting good students in, making sure that we make a commitment to the students to be sure that we supply to them everything that it is that they need to be successful and begin to become they are a colleague in training in graduate school. And then being sure that they have the resources to be successful and to actually graduate. And so those are sort of the things that I have as a greater vision. And I typed those up. Like I went into Google Docs, I typed those things up. This is what I want. This is what I want. And so after that, I had to kind of cull that down and say, okay, these are the things that I think are doable with the money that's involved and with the partners that we have involved that fit inside of the guideline. And so I was able to come up with 3 objectives and come up with the tasks under those, and then associate those with money, because after all, I'm asking for funding and we have to be sure. And, really kind of tweak things. So yet again, got on Excel, started putting in some numbers, figuring out, okay, how many students at what rate of pay, how many weeks, or how many semesters, and then try to get the most impact out of those. But that's what I was trying to do. So this is essentially, if you have not gone through this process, you probably have. That's what you're going to be doing, is really trying to do that within the confines of what USDA is funding through this particular program, and what it is that your organization is all about, and what it is that you want to do. And understand the things that are that you've written down as being these different components and different description and ideas are not necessarily the objectives themselves, but they relate to the objectives. So when I talk about the objectives, those are the things that are written. So the objectives are something like 3 to 5 different things that you want to see done as part of your project. And it may be more. I mean, if you're applying for $1 million, maybe you have 10 objectives. But the one thing that I would say is, and we'll talk about it next week, is that your objectives should definitely be distinguishable. I've seen so many times as a reviewer that people have 3 objectives and 2 of them are exactly the same thing. They may describe it a little differently, but they're the same. You're like, well, they really only have 2 objectives. They've written a bunch of text to support it, but they really just have the same thing. So assignment, I know we're kind of truncating today, but assignments for 410, which is next Monday, and enjoy your weekend, depending on how you're spending it, depending on what you do. We're going to talk about selection and defining your overall goal and your goal. So select a few of the descriptions that you wrote in this exercise that are in a set time and place and can be supported, and then give a well-defined overall goal and give between 3 to 5 general steps to achieve it. Now, I know that this is a competitive process. Like everyone that's on the call right now, I think we have 66 people on the call, including myself and the Wallace Center, the great folks at Wallace Center. So some of you may be like, well, I don't really want to, share what it is that I want to do. I get it. We get to the point where we're kind of being competitive. But for those of you who feel comfortable enough to do it, I'm not going to press. I would like for y'all to kind of share maybe your overall goal and maybe 1 or so of your objectives when we get back. And other tasks, if you have not done so, outline a proposal, so at least you know exactly what you need to do. And if you have not done so, contact those potential supporters and ask if they would be willing to write letters or sign one, and then draft a letter just in case. And we have questions about letters. Letters from the intended beneficiaries are vitally important. It is very important that the people that are reading the proposal have some evidence that the people who are supposed to benefit from the proposal, it's of interest to them. I'm not saying that there aren't instances where people get money to do projects and they don't necessarily have proof that it's going to benefit someone's life. at a time, and yeah, they still do get money. But letters are vitally important. And to me, there are really three different kinds of letters. There are letters of commitment, letters of cooperation, and letters of support. Now, I, as a reviewer, draw those distinctions. Other reviewers probably don't. But a letter of commitment is something that comes from your institution, basically, that says, we see that one of our employees has written this, and we are backing him, her, or they up on this project. Now, sometimes letters of commitment are required, but in a lot of projects they are. Then there's a letter of cooperation or collaboration. That's when an external entity, either from a subgroup within your organization or from a completely different organization, says, I have signed up to help with this project that's written here. This is my documentation to say that, yes, they're saying I'm going to do this, and I'm saying, yes, what they said we're going to do, we're going to do. So you have letters of commitment, letters of cooperation, and the last one is letters of support. And letters of support are arguably the most important one, because they demonstrate to the reviewers, who are representatives of USDA or whatever funding organization, which are representing either their donors or, in the case of USDA, the tax-paying public, to say, yes, this is going to have an impact that's good. So if your target is farmers, you probably should have farmers. If it's restaurants, you should have them. And it doesn't have to be an exorbitant number. I know a lot of people, what is the number? My guess is that if you cast your net broadly, you will get enough. If you are very deliberate, you may get all that you ask for, but definitely get out there and ask for letters. They are really influential. At least they're, as a reviewer, they're really influential to me, to see that there is a letter that someone said, yes, I think it's a great idea. No, now I will say intended beneficiaries. Now, if your intended beneficiary is a mayor, then great. If it's a U.S. House of Representatives, then that's great. If it's a state senator, that's great. But typically those letters are basically letters that you go online, you go to their form, you give them the specs. They may call you up and confirm your jurisdiction, and they just email it to you. They have a staff member that just does it. I don't think that those are quite as influential. I think if you're dealing with education, if it's coming from, say, the mayor or county commission or the school board superintendent, I think that that's very influential, but it's more on a local level. But use your own best judgment with those. So I see that there are 2 notes in the chat. Are 10 letters of support too much? No, that's not too much. Can someone clarify whether letters of support are needed for LFPP, FMPP, or just recommended sort of letters of commitment? Definitely saw it wasn't letters of support. Wallace Center.
Annalena and I were grant reviewers for these programs last year, and I do recall that there being letters of support. Annalena? And I would also add that, I would also add, just read the requirements as well. But Annalena, do you have more?
That's kind of what I was going to say. I don't know the answer to that. I'm on their website right now on their FAQs and some of their other support documentation that they have available. But yeah, I mean, best thing to do is read it. And then if you still can't find the answer, they have all their contact information for the different grant reviewers and grant administrators for each of those programs. But I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
Going back to the comment, one of the questions, letter of cooperation, they have different terms, but typically when you have a subaward or you have a collaborator, or you have a what do you call it? A consultant. Well, a consultant will have a plan of work, but they also typically do it's basically like, okay, I'm at Tuskegee University and I'm going to say that Auburn's going to do something. I need to have a document that says whatever it is I say Auburn's going to do, that they're actually saying they agree to do. So that's kind of that letter. It's just to prove that they are, and it may have a different term, but it's just to prove that the people that you say are doing something that are either outside of your division or outside of your organization actually do agree to do what you say do. And sometimes it comes up as being really glaring, especially if, let me give you a perfect case, especially when you have a larger organization that says that a smaller organization, perhaps the same kind of organization that may be in their state, says that they're going to do something, but they don't include them in their budget. They don't include them as a PI, as a PD, a project director, or a co-PD. And they say this other entity is going to do a portion of the work, but they're not going to pay them. So that in those kinds of cases, you definitely need a letter that says, yes, this other organization has agreed to support this project in this kind of way. Now, if they have a co-PI on a project, if they are clearly in the budget, then that kind of makes more sense. Like, okay, you're giving them this money, it's stated within the thing, and you're fine. But I did want to circle back to a point that kind of comes off from the other comment that you made. When it comes to being sure that you have your group or your team kind of laid out as to who's going to do the work. Making sure that the budget, if they're included on a budget, is commensurate to the amount of work. I actually, there was a proposal that I wrote that with a group, and I guess that the reviewers were trying to protect us as a small 1890, and they're like, Tuskegee, they're not getting enough money. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're getting a third of the take. How are we not getting enough money? And we were doing more or less our fair share, but the reviewers were like, they're not being included fairly. And I'm like, no, these are people away from Alabama. They're including us fairly. It's the other people we need to be concerned with. So get that congressional letters of support, right? Is it asking for that? Okay, so I think I pretty much beat the horse to death now. Questions and answers. And there weren't any of those. Okay, Q&A.
Yeah, before we head into Q&A, it would be
Sorry.
Yes, no worries. It'd be really helpful if you all could just help us answer a short poll and let us know if this training today, if you learned something new that's meaningful for your work. And then we're going to go into Q&A where we can dive a little bit more into some of the topics that we've been discussing today. And maybe even if you were on the call yesterday, if there were some questions or excuse me, Monday, if there were some questions that didn't get answered. So hopefully you all can see the poll. If you wouldn't mind taking a second to just answer this one question. Can you guys see the poll? Yes, all right. I don't know if it's working. I don't think it's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Oh,
And I'm going to end it. We're at about 83% of folks have responded. So thank you all for sharing. And it seems like 98% of you have gained something meaningful today. So we love to hear that. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Vaughn. I guess we can move into some Q&A now.
Yeah, and feel free to either type your questions in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and ask your question, because I know sometimes it's hard to write complicated questions into the chat. So you can also use the reaction button by raising your hand. We really want to hear from you. And it maybe some of you don't have a question, maybe you might have a comment. I see like, you know, this is a great opportunity for folks to like, maybe share experiences and things like that that they've had as well. So we're all learning from each other.
Or if there's anything that as you guys have been writing your proposals or thinking about them around this vision and idea phase, if anything has come up or you're getting stuck and want to get some advice on, this is a great opportunity too.
I want to chime in for a minute and give y'all props because this has been a really great series. I've had the best week. I don't get a lot of professional development opportunities because most of the grant writing webinars are trying to sell me some kind of a search engine for $10,000 a year or something crazy. So this is really a lot of fun. And I didn't realize I'm relatively new as a grant writer, maybe 3 or 4 years. But I feel like I've learned a lot in those few years, and I'm really excited to still be learning new stuff. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Stella. I'm glad that you can be here. And if you weren't able to catch that webinar yesterday, it was recorded. So if you're applying for a LAMP grant, definitely recommend y'all catch that recording. There are some really good tips around crafting your application to really match the evaluation criteria, which are super helpful too.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know in this group here, how many people have applied to some of this funding before and not been funded? And, are you taking this opportunity to really like hone in on your application? So I'm just wondering, you could use the reaction button, you can raise your hand, but like how many of you are really refining your grant proposal who may have applied for this pot of money before but not been funded? Looks like we got maybe one person. Hey, Adasha. You're welcome to come off mute if you have a question, or is that you're reapplying?
No.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm reapplying. I think the first time when we were doing the grants, it was a lot of we were novice, so there were a lot of mistakes that were missed. So it was nice to hear the thorough input and going through a lot of the process, what folks are expecting. Really, I think it was too advantageous. We didn't narrow down the scope or that one thing or our niche. So it was selling a collective idea of changing all food systems, right? So, which is probably not the best thing to get funded, but yeah, picking out, and that's been my struggle, is picking out that thing to get funded. So I really appreciate that, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Anybody else that would like to share, maybe like if they have